now to this horrific case. The man facing over 700 counts of rape, murder, sexual assault and sex trafficking. He remains adamant that his hands are clean. Gerhard Ackerman has pleaded not guilty to all the charges he's been facing. He is expected back in court next Monday. Today the matter was meant to receive judgment, but it was postponed because the judge has a sore throat, has to read this massive judgment into the court record. eNCA reporter Heidi Giokos following those developments. Joining me in studio now, Heidi, you were in court today. We know the judge just simply wasn't able to do that reading. But you managed to speak to Gerhard Ackerman, this man, and just take us back to what he is accused of doing.
So it's over 740 charges. This includes sexual assault, human trafficking, rape, grooming of young children, sexually grooming of young children, as well as distributing child pornography and being in possession of child pornography. This dates back to early 2020, 2021, this particular matter, but Gerhard Ackerman is also facing a sexual assault case back from 2018. We do know that obviously this is a horrific story. I mean, you had these young boys that were groomed. We do know from what Gerhard Ackerman has told the courts during his trial, of course he represented himself. He did have some assistance from legal aid, but he basically said that it was a service, it was a massage parlor, and he had told the young boys that all you do is massage these young boys and nothing more. However, it seems as though these clients would then obviously take advantage and sexually assault these young boys, and Gerhard Ackerman would of course be grooming these young boys. I think what's even more disturbing, Sally, is that you had a second accused in this matter. For some reason I've forgotten his name.
Paul Kennedy.
Paul Kennedy, yes.
The acting judge.
Yeah, the acting judge, a well-known attorney. He actually took his own life. And the reason this happened, well, they suspect this happened, was because when the trial started and when this matter was before court, they had to do blood tests. And there was a lot of back and forth with the blood tests. Why must these blood tests be taken? Eventually the blood tests were taken and it came out that Paul Kennedy was HIV positive. And one of the young boys that was sexually assaulted also is HIV positive, and soon after that he took his own life. Paul Kennedy took his own life. So it's only Gerhard Ackerman that is before the courts, and judgment is expected on Monday. But let's just listen to what Gerhard Ackerman had to say. He's not denying this, but he is basically saying these boys knew what they were getting into. Then we asked him, but these are minors. Surely they don't know what they're getting themselves into. And he said, well, I didn't tell them to get sexually active with them. And as an adult, you should be protecting minors, because how do you understand anything when it comes to sexual affairs at the age of 11 or even 16, 17, 18? His demeanor was shocking. It really took me aback to see how he's basically saying I've done absolutely nothing wrong, and quite frankly I will make sure I go to another court if I'm found guilty. Let's listen to what he had to say.
What if it was your son? If I was your son, would you like me to go to prison? I didn't do anything wrong.
You didn't do anything wrong?
What did I do wrong? Tell me. Tell me. Tell me.
Do you believe you did nothing wrong?
Yes. What did I do wrong? Tell me. You can't tell me.
And if the court finds you guilty?
Then I want another court. Because this judge is, let me rather not say.
Over 700 charges, and says he did nothing wrong. And of course we know that there have been groups involved in helping to piece together this case, look after the victims. You've spoken to Women and Men Against Child Abuse. They have been very involved in trying to create justice here.
Yes, and the reason for this, Sally, is because you're dealing with minors. It's a very sensitive matter. These young boys will never be the same again, and their healing process is going to be a very long one. We do also understand that a lot of what was before the court was in camera, which means it was not open to anybody because of the sensitivity of this, and of course because they are still minors, and one day they're going to go out there in the world and try and make something of themselves, and they obviously don't want
What
this.
is the age group, do you know?
It's
roughly?
Between 11 and 18 years
Gosh.
old. So very young. Of course, you have organizations coming out and saying they are calling for the judge to hand down a life sentence because it will also impact parole. But at the end of the day, it's about making sure that these young boys are protected. And there was a very interesting element that was brought up by these organizations, that a lot of these boys felt an element of shame, which was rather sad because they're obviously so young, they don't understand what's going on. They also don't understand why they've been sexually assaulted like this. Is this the way of life? And because this has happened to them, there's an element of shame. And what these organizations have come out saying is, we hope that he is sentenced to life so that they can understand that they did nothing wrong, and it's just rather unfortunate that they were sexually assaulted to this level. Let's listen to that.
The thing for us is that we are really wanting, in this case, as Women and Men Against Child Abuse, a life sentence. The reason for the life sentence is because life sentences have an impact on parole. We're having huge issues with the parole system at the moment, releasing very complicated, very dangerous people without any rehabilitation, remorse, etc. It's a scary, scary thing. So at least if we get a life sentence, which I'm hoping the judge is going to hand down, that life sentence will mean that he can only apply for parole in 25 years. That's the implication. And in addition to that, it has to go to the minister. If he gets 25 years, that means he can apply for parole after a period served, 2/3 of his sentence, and that is just the parole board. It doesn't have to be overseen by the minister. So we really want this to be a life sentence for, obviously for the fact that we believe it's appropriate, but secondly that there's some kind of monitoring over the parole system that is higher than the parole board itself.
I mean, it's a shocking case. It reminds me a little of the Jeffrey Epstein case in the USA. Jeffrey Epstein, also quite high profile, as was advocate Paul Kennedy, and of course also not alive to tell the story. So we will hear sentencing on Monday, and you were saying to me it's going to be a long read because there are over 700 charges. Such an important case to get justice on. Thank you so much, Heidi Giokos.